my friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ellie Lee and this is Ellie Lee Design. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to use a Scorch Marker to engrave a wood burning design into some wooden coasters. But before we get started, we're going to take a look at the materials that we're going to be using, which I've also included in the description box below. The first thing you'll need is your cutting machine, and I'll be using my Cricut Maker in today's tutorial. You're also going to need your cutting mat, some wax paper, your wooden coasters, your transfer tape, some vinyl. I'm going to be using the Waverly varnish in the mat, a small paintbrush, your scorch pen, and lastly, your heat gun. Okay, so the image that I'm going to be uploading into Design Space today comes from designbundles.com, and I'm gonna just quickly show you how to convert that image to make it very easy to cut without having to play around with it too much. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is go over to the left here in Cricut Design Space. We'll see the upload option. Click upload, and then you'll click on the upload image and browse. I'm going to select the abstract geometric number 2 and click open. And then I'll select complex so that we can get the most detail possible and click continue. So what I'm going to do here is erase the light gray line that you see here. And the reason for that is this is currently just one flat image, and I want to be able to differentiate between this darker gray and the lighter gray for this particular project. So I'm just going to zoom out so that you can see most of this pattern here. And it is automatically on this little select and erase option. So I'm going to click on the light gray, and you'll see that all of that light gray will disappear. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the pattern, you'll see that it has done that for the entire pattern. And this is exactly what we'll need, and I'll show you why in just a second. So here we'll click continue. And then we're going to select the cut image option and upload on the lower right. Okay, so now we're going to click on that image that we've just uploaded, insert image on the lower right here, and now we'll see our image. And just to make this a little bit smaller so it's easier to see, I'm gonna go up to the top here under size, and I'm just gonna click 4 inches so that it'll make it smaller. Perfect. And now I'll zoom in just a little bit more. So the reason we I went ahead and selected just to remove the light gray is because I wanted to be able to cut out our design and make it easier for the wood burning, because what we're going to be doing is applying that chemical from the Scorch Marker into these little crevices, and if we had the one solid image, it wouldn't be able to differentiate it. It wouldn't do this particular design. It would do a cut and print, which you would be able to use a printable HTV and put that on a t-shirt or any design that you want to do. But for this particular case, I needed to be able to cut the design in greater detail. So that's why I did that. Now that we have our design, what we want to do is create the coaster, recreate the coaster, so that we're actually working with the size and the surface that we're going to be using, or we're mimicking that into in Cricut Design Space that we're going to be doing in real life. So I'm going to go ahead and select the shapes here and circle, and our coaster, or my coaster, is 4 inches. So I keep saying hour because I feel like you guys are with me. So it is 4 inches. So I'm just gonna type in 4 inches here, and you'll see that it'll automatically make the height 4 inches as well, because we have that little padlock on. If we were to click on that, it'll open it, and then we can change the dimensions by each side rather than all of it together. But for this particular project, we want to keep it all the same size. So there we have our coaster, our pretend coaster, and we're going to go ahead and change that color. I'll just make it to this little yellow here. That'll kind of pretend to be our wood. And now I'm going to go ahead and bring our pattern over. We'll bring our pattern, actually we'll select the coaster and send that to the back. So we can see our pattern is just barely overlapping. I'm gonna make it just a smidge bigger there. And then what we're going to do, just to make sure that we don't use extra vinyl, we're just gonna clear all this out. It'll make it easier to line up too. But we're going to remove all of this that doesn't have that yellow because we just don't need that. So the way we're going to do that is we're gonna drag and select both pieces. And then we're gonna go to the lower right hand corner here or side and select the slice option. And then if we click on this, we're going to be able to separate that border that we had that we're not going to use, and we're going to X out of that because we don't need it. And then we'll separate these remaining pieces. So now what we've ended up with is two other designs because these are just the same. So we'll get rid of this one. We don't need that one. We have this one here, which actually really pays more attention, I think, or draws more attention to the little, not so much the lines, but these little shapes here. And then you have the other that really grabs more attention to the outer lines or the lines in the design. I like both of them and intend to use both of them for my 4 coasters. So what I'm gonna do on this yellow, I'm just going to make it black so they look the same. I just think that looks so beautiful. And this one's really quite nice too. But before we go to cutting, I wanted to add some verbiage in there that would just go right across here, and just to make it a little bit funnier. So what I'm going to do is select the shapes. I'm going to grab a square here, and I'm going to click on the padlock here so that I can resize my square, because I want it to go kind of straight across so that it kind of matches that whole symmetrical thing we have going on here. I'm just gonna do the 1 inch because I think that would be more than enough. Okay, and then I'm gonna click on both of them, select both, just so that I can align them evenly. Great. So now that those are both aligned, what I want to do here is very similar to what we did the first time around, and that's slice it so that I don't have this extra border here, and I just end up with an empty space in the middle here. Okay, and now I'm going to repeat that on this design as well. So we're back now. Now we have both of our little coaster designs with their background. And now I'm going to select my text. Okay, since the text is really very separated, I'm going to use the line space here to move the text a little closer together, just so it doesn't look like a big, huge gap. So I duplicated the font on over to the other pattern that we have here, but I felt like it was just way too many lines, and I needed to kind of create the similar thing that we have going on here. So this would need to be a darker background. So I'm gonna go back and use my shapes to go ahead and slice the words into that shape so that we have the background that says the same exact thing, but it'll be the darker version. Okay, so now we have our both of our designs. I have a feeling that this particular one here could have been much easier to do a different way, but as always, I'm bringing you guys through this DIY with me. I've not done it before, so these are the many steps I had to follow in order to do it. You know, definitely, if there's a simpler way, please comment below and I'll try that out as well. All right, so now we're ready to print our design. So we're going to click on the Make It button. Oh no. So here's a DIY don't. And proof that I am literally doing this with you guys. As you can see, my pattern on my mat is separated. So I took all of that time to make it pretty and get it all together, and it's all separated, which is fine in a way because we can go ahead and just manually fix that once it's cut, but we don't wanna have to do extra work if we don't have to, right? So we're gonna click cancel here, and I'm going to select my group. So my first coaster here, and then I'm gonna click on the weld button here at the bottom, and that is going to weld those two pieces together. So they were grouped together, but welding will put it together once you get over to your cutting mat. And I'm gonna do the same for this one here. We're gonna click on weld, and now we're going to click make it again. And there you go. You can now see that we have our coasters and they're together exactly how we would want them. Now, in the past, in one of my other videos, I mentioned that this is the area where you want to make sure that you click on your mirror option, but because we're not using HTV, we don't need to use the mirror option. So we're going to run right over to our continue button and select our machine. Now, here's another important one. If you have not turned on your machine, your option to connect machine is just going to be thinking. So make sure your machine is on, plugged in if you're using the USB cord, or set to your Bluetooth setting so that you can connect via Bluetooth. All right, so finally, now that it's connected, I can select the materials I'm going to be using, which is a premium vinyl. Click on that. I'm going to keep the default pressure. We have our fine point blade already in the Cricut. So we're gonna go ahead and load our vinyl onto our cutting mat and load the cutting mat into our machine. And once we've done that, it'll go ahead and start flashing a little Cricut sign, and we'll click on that. Now that our design has been cut, we've pulled it off the machine, and now we're just going to take it off of our cutting mat by peeling the cutting mat off of the vinyl. And there we go. So the one thing I did forget though is I have 4 coasters and I only printed for 2. So I'm going to load some new, or put some new piece of vinyl onto my cutting mat, and then I'm going to put it through the machine once more. If that happens to you and you're wanting to print the same exact design, all you need to do is go ahead and click the C again, and it'll cut the same exact design. So while the other design, or the other set, is being cut, I'm gonna go ahead and weed out my first design. One thing that I forgot to mention is your weeding tool. I got the Stab and Grab tweezers by 143 Vinyl, and I love them. They're so great. They're so easy to weed with. I definitely recommend this if you don't have a weeding tool that you're totally in love with. I think that this is one that you'll absolutely love. Okay, so now that we have our coaster patterns, it's time to move on to our wooden coasters. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to use our transfer tape, which this is the piece I've used a couple of times already, and I stuck it to my wax paper, but we're going to use the transfer tape, get that over there, to put our patterns onto so that we can then transfer it onto our wooden coaster rounds. So we'll go ahead and apply these here. Okay, so I forgot to also mention that you were going to need your little squeegee. So this is our first one. We're gonna go ahead and apply it to our wooden coaster. So rather than making every effort possible to go ahead and center this on here and accidentally stick it, which has happened a lot of times, I'm going to apply my pattern onto the wax paper, but just with, or here, I'll do it the other way around actually, and apply the wax paper onto the transfer tape with my design just below the top of it so that I'm sticking just the top part, and I can use this soft surface or smooth surface to move around the wooden coaster. Okay, so now that I found the point there, I'm going to peel this up here just so I can remove bits of the wax paper and stick my design on. Okay, once we've squeegeed it, we can go ahead and remove the transfer tape. And we'll just repeat the same steps for all of our coasters. Okay, so this shouldn't take so long to peel off, but this is not, I want to just be very clear, it has nothing to do with this transfer tape. This transfer tape is super amazing. I just think I've used it way too many times, which isn't necessary because this is the most reasonably priced transfer tape that I've found so far. It costs nothing in comparison to other brands. So honestly, this is just me being cheap and you know, reusing this more than I probably should have. So don't get discouraged. This is not going to happen to you if you're using a new piece of transfer tape. Another DIY don't. I put my finger right over the vinyl and not the transfer tape, and the vinyl ended up sticking on me and coming off of the transfer tape. But in the spirit of not giving up and seeing this through, I just finished removing the rest of the vinyl and then put those pieces back into the missing section where they had come off of. With our designs now on our coasters, we're ready to move on to the next step, and that's with our Scorch Marker. So this marker has two sides. There's a marker side and a foam brush side. So I'll go ahead and do this. And for the purposes of this tutorial, we'll go ahead and speed through it. Okay, so now we're done with our Scorch Marker. So next we're going to remove the stencil from our coasters so that we can go ahead and use our heat gun next. So I can already see here that I didn't get a part of the design when I was using the Scorch Marker. So I'm just gonna go back really quickly since I kind of have an idea of what it looked like and try to the best of my ability, create it without it looking too messy. So now that we've got them all weeded out or cleaned up, we're ready for our heat gun. So the heat gun I have is a Black & Decker, which I will also include that information below. But it's really easy to use. It has the two settings, and really you just wanna, you can go as fast or as slow as you want, but I'm gonna start on the slower setting at first, which is the lowest setting, I should say, and I'll go a little bit higher if need be. But I want to just see how these change before I go too aggressively. Look at this, I've got vinyl all over me. But before I go too aggressively, because the more heat, the darker it gets. So you just want to start slow and then you keep going from there. Okay, so my lower heat setting is pretty low, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go up to my highest heat setting. this is the first one, and it is a little hot, so I'm not gonna pick it up just yet. But it came out pretty good, but I don't know if you can see from afar, my Scorch Marker, the liquid from my Scorch Marker actually bled into the wood. So it's definitely not just a clean look, and you can actually tell with the letters here because you can't see just a clean L or O, but I do like it. I mean, I think it just makes it more rustic. You know, like I've said in my other videos, I'm not necessarily looking for this like perfect cookie cutter look. It's nice to have all these little you know, differences or these little things that make it unique. So I like it. Okay, so that's it. They are done, and once they've cooled off, we'll go ahead and put on the varnish matte finish. Now that they're dry, we're gonna go ahead and use the Waverly varnish in matte finish to go ahead and seal our coasters. So now I've finished my top coat, and we're just gonna let it dry so we can see our finished product. All right, my friends, that is a wrap. We have completed this wooden coaster project, and I really hope that you like it. There are a couple things that I learned myself in this project. Definitely on the transfer tape, I would not reuse the transfer tape. I would use a new piece if I'm working with a really intricate design, because there were so many little tiny pieces that I needed to weed and then transfer, and it made it very, very difficult to use a piece of transfer tape that I had reused several times before. So lesson learned there. And the other thing is to have gloves. I completely forgot my gloves. So you definitely, I think, should have a pair of gloves with you when you're working with the Scorch Marker, just because you don't really know everything that's in that, and it would be ideal not to touch it. But I did improvise with the wax paper, so that worked out okay. And then the other is just making sure before you peel off the vinyl that you did get the Scorch Marker into all of the areas that you want to go ahead and scorch afterwards, because then you're going to have to draw it in, which I had to do in a couple of different ones, which actually ended up being simpler than I thought. But you know, if you want to avoid that, that would be a good thing to just keep an eye on for before you start to remove your vinyl. But other than that, honestly, I think that it turned out great. It was a fun project. It's different, and I look forward to being able to use it, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think. If you have any feedback on something I could have done differently, please let me know, because I'm always open to suggestions. This is the first time on this project, and I'm sure that there is a lot of things that I might have been able to do differently. So I look forward to receiving those comments. And also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure that you don't miss any of my weekly videos. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.